back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today I'm going to go over a story titled, Am I the A-hole for dating my ex's boss and ruining her career? And a shout out to Brian for sending this story. And guys, this definitely entertaining story is about a guy who, it's difficult to say whether it's the last laugh, but definitely seeing some karma come back towards his ex after years of being with this girl and tolerating a lot of her crap, which he shouldn't have. Eventually our guy breaks up with this train wreck girlfriend of his. Well, time goes by and he starts dating a great girl and finds out that she is the boss of his now ex. And his ex loses it so badly, screws it up that she ends up losing her job and ruining her career. And I'll be going to go over here, guys, making the point that it is a small world. You never know how your ex may come back into your life. But let me tell you, people that are jerks and take advantage of you, eventually sometimes these jerks, karma does come their way. And of course, if you're with a girlfriend who's clearly taking advantage of you or is just a train wreck, childish, all those things, don't spend years of your life with her. Break up with her, move on, end of story here. And so you'll definitely see how this goes. And in the end, you'll see that a lot of people think he's the villain, the big a-hole here. And I absolutely disagree with that. And I'd like to see what you guys have to say at the end of this story. So it starts off, says here, so I, 26-year-old male, started dating Jen, a 24-year-old female, when we were both in college. This happened during my junior year and her freshman year. Things were good, though I noticed that she had no tolerance for stress at all and would melt down during stressful moments. As you can imagine, this was pretty bad in college. She would cry and complain constantly about school and her workload. And even though I was empathetic towards her, I kind of knew in my heart that she was being a baby most of the time. Okay, so she's a giant pain in the ass, all right? And, dude, why are you with this girl? Okay? I mean, there must have been something really great about her other than all this whining and complaining and crap, you know? I mean, let's be honest, all girls are going to whine and complain, but there's degrees to this. I hope she was amazing in bed, amazing body, and all that. It says here, I really developed this sentiment during finals weeks of my junior year and our first year dating, when she would cry damn near every single day from the stress and complain that I didn't know how hard her schedule was, which was kind of insulting to me considering that I had a much more rigorous schedule than she did. Oh, the poor baby. She has a place to live. She has food. She has shelter. I just said that. She has a boyfriend. She has all these things. And she's acting like her whole world is... There are a lot of people in this world that don't know where their next meal is coming from, and she's having a meltdown about all this. Come on. I think this girl's got serious problems. I think she was probably very sheltered by her parents. Ay. Well, I understand that people handle stress in different ways, but she essentially turned into a child every time something remotely stressful came up. I chalked her behavior up to her having a gentle heart, and we moved on, with the hope that once she graduated, she would have some more years of maturing and a more simple schedule once she got a career. I was wrong. Yeah, you were wrong. Smack. How much time you're wasting with this girl? I think this guy kind of had I wouldn't say Captain Save-A-Ho, but I would say Captain Save a pain in the ass. He's being kind of a white knight here. And what happens to white knights? But don't worry. Well, we moved in together after I graduated. Smack! Are you out of your mind? You barely know this girl. Okay, a couple years, but still. And what you do know, you want to be around this all the time? Well, she was a nightmare. Shocker. One of the worst people I've ever lived with. She wouldn't cook or clean even a fifth of the time because she was too tired and stressed out from the day. I'd be like, you're going to get off your little tight little ass. I'm assuming, hopefully, she has a tight little ass and good body, considering what he's putting up with. And you're going to cook something. I don't care if you got to boil some ramen noodles and get the freaking vacuum and vacuum the carpet. It's not all on me. She would order takeout constantly and leave her dirty food containers all over the apartment. She never cleaned even after herself. Oh my God. I've noticed a trend. I don't know if some of you guys notice this. Women that are slobs, their apartment, their homes are a mess, as he described. They're also really bad at taking care of certain parts of their bodies, if you will. They don't groom often down there or in the pits, amongst many other things. You can tell a lot about a gal, her personal hygiene, just by looking around the apartment, seeing what her car is like. A lot of times girls have their cars, there's all this crap everywhere. Yeah. Well, whenever I pointed this out to her, she would blame it on the stress. She'd also skip class constantly so she could manage her stress. As you can imagine, our sex life suffered and we barely had sex because she was never in the mood. Smack! Why are you still with her? Good God. He had a warning. He got to see what she was like early on and thought it was a great idea to move in with her. Well, she barely graduated on time, literally needing an extension on an assignment that was already extended, and the only reason she made that deadline was because I rode her for a week, demanding that we sit down and finish her project. All the while, I maintained a full-time job. As for me, I stayed during her final year mostly out of financial convenience. It's a shitty, I know, but when I signed the final lease, I remember thinking to myself that I had to stay with her due to the fact that I could not afford to live in the city without her. On top of that, I couldn't afford to live anywhere within 70 miles of my job, so I was kind of stuck. I eventually got promoted at my job and was able to start putting money away so I could buy myself out of my lease and break up with her. Well, you know what? If he truly felt like he was trapped and no other alternative, and I believe he had other alternatives, then I got no problem doing what he had to do, playing the game as a boyfriend to save up money and get away from her. Because you know what? A lot of women would do far worse. And here's a question. How is she affording to pay the bills and everything if she's having such a train wreck juggling school? I'm guessing either she's paying the bills for rent and all the other stuff, either through families giving her that money, or she's getting it from like living expenses with her loans. I can imagine what her loans would be. So I break up with Jen, and she takes it poorly. Thank God, it's about time. She changes the locks on the apartment and held my stuff hostage so I would talk to her. I eventually resorted to busting the lock to get the rest of my stuff and fully moved out. The landlord of the old unit knew a guy who put me in contact with my current landlord, who had hooked me up with a great affordable rental house. Well, I'm glad he could work it out with his former landlord. Anyway, I met the landlord's daughter, Kate, who came by the property a few times for various things, and we hit it off. I asked her out, and we went on a few dates, so things went good. I asked Kate to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. Well, life is good. Kate is a manager at a company in the same field as my ex, but since we have only been dating for 4 to 5 months, I didn't feel particularly motivated to bring this up and start talking about exes. Well, frankly, you should honestly talk about exes early on, both yours and hear about hers. You talk about exes because that can kind of clue you in on who you're getting involved with here. You're out on a date and talk to a girl about exes, and all she can say is nothing but negative things about her exes, and labeling them as abusive and all this stuff, and everything was their fault. Guess what? That's going to be you one day. But anyhow, he didn't mention his now ex-girlfriend, crybaby Jen. But you know what? Why should he, even if they're in the same field? After all, they're in a big city, 1 million people. What are the odds? Well, all this brings us up to last week, when Kate invited me to a company happy hour where family was encouraged to be invited. Free booze sounded pretty good to me, so I accept. I show up, and Kate is introducing me to her team, and in her team is, wait for it, Jen. Wow, what are the odds? In the 1 million person city that he's living in, he's dating the gal who's Jen's boss. I don't know how at all Jen, his crybaby slob of an ex, managed to get a job and stay in a job giving her temperament. Well, my intent was to play things cool, disclose to Kate that Jen and I dated, and go from there. Well, Jen had other plans, which included yelling and screaming and wondering what was I doing there, then calling me an asshole and storming out. She's doing this at a work function. Drama, drama, drama. How do you think this is going to go? Then she comes back inside and getting wasted, and then crying at the bar and having multiple employees going up and making sure she was okay. She's one of those girls. I'm sure all you guys have either encountered gals like that, maybe dated someone like that they love the drama, the tears. I was rewatching Game of Thrones over the last few months, and there's this one scene where Cersei, that bitch with the blonde hair, you Game of Thrones people know what I'm talking about, and Cersei says to Sansa, basically, a woman has 2 powerful weapons, her tears and what's between her legs. And I laughed my ass off, because it's the fucking truth. Right there, the tears, and getting these suckers to come up and, what's wrong, honey? Anyway. Well, Kate was understandably mortified. The whole thing made me upset and uncomfortable, and Kate and I decided to leave shortly afterwards. Yeah, I'd leave too. Well, Kate has relayed that since the happy hour that Jen has managed to get herself fired at work. Hey, she deserved it. Kate immediately went to HR about the whole thing, and they had an HR rep. Kate and another manager speak to Jen about her behavior. According to Kate, Jen did not take things well and called Kate a whore, among many other things. Man, this chick is unhinged. This chick needs professional help. Holy crap! Either she needs to be on some meds, or either she's off her fucking meds, or she who knows? Or she's on meds and too many meds. I don't know. They obviously wrote her up for that, and since she was on a PIP, I know, shocker, that was grounds to fire her. Kate didn't want the optics of signing off on her termination, so she recommended that the company move Jen to a different department. That was before Jen forced their hand to fire her by loudly saying that Kate stole her boyfriend and was a slur for Mexican people type of whore. Oh, it's one thing her throwing a fit and embarrassing the company by acting that way at the function, but by calling her boss a WHORE and then getting racist about it, yeah, that's not going to fly. I felt that the whole thing was just drama on top of drama, but hopefully things would die down since Jen got fired. But nope, of course things aren't going to die down. Well, some mutual friends have told me that I'm an a-hole for 3 main reasons. Of course, this guy's being labeled the bad guy here. Now listen to the reasons why so-called friends are saying he's the a-hole. Number 1, buying my way out of the lease and leaving the apartment to Jen. Apparently, I should have known that she was bad with money and was going to lose the apartment. Women have dumped guys for far less in a much more cruel way. This guy here was preparing for this whole thing. He obviously took care of his share of the money. He didn't renew the lease with Jen. End of freaking story here. It is not his fault. This guy carried her for years. Maybe not necessarily financially, but definitely was that carrying her emotionally and all that. And he was done. Too bad. Number 2, ghosting Jen. Apparently telling her that I wanted to break up with her and then proceeding to leave and blocking her on everything and only unblocking her for my stuff was shitty. Again, she's the one that locked all his shit in. He couldn't get to it, so he had to unblock her on social media to talk to her. Ended up having to break in the apartment to get his stuff. That was on her. But guess what? You mean to tell me that women don't break up with guys and block them on social media? Happens all the time. They're just pissed that he's doing what they do. 3, not telling Kate that I used to date Jen or telling Jen that I'm currently dating Kate. As for this point, they might have a point. Not the Jen part. There's no reason why we need to tell her anything. Exactly. But I do feel bad for not telling her about Jen. If I told her, she could have told me that they worked together and I could not have come to the happy hours and make Jen crash out. They're supposed to be all adults here, okay? And what were the odds that Kate, his now girlfriend who's normal, was working with and the boss of Jen in a city of 1 million people? He mentions later on there's 1 million people in the city. And there's probably plenty of offices in that line of work. No, he's not the a-hole for that. And by the way, people break up all the time. You still go to functions and act like adults, not like children. Jen's a big child. According to our mutual friends, they told me that Jen moved out of her apartment because she knew that she would just lose it anyway. She is also blaming me. Well, of course, she has no accountability. Everything's your fault. I spoke to my mother about all this, and she does think that I may have hurt Jen too much during our breakup, and if I had just let her speak to me and get closure, then none of this would have happened. Tell your mom, I love you, Mom, but it's none of your business. Am I the a-hole? No, you're not the a-hole. The only thing you were the a-hole for was dating her as long as you did, then moving in with her, and tolerating her crap all that time. No, not at all. Jen is a big freaking child, and she is an example of what happens when parents don't raise their kids right in this world, when mom and dad wants to be the best friend to their children, you know? No, fuck her. You enable her behavior for a long time, and you learned the hard way and you paid for that. But no, you're allowed to move on, and it's not your fault. And again, how many times do women break up with guys for far less and do far more, and the guy's expected to deal with it? Well, so can Jen. So no, I think what this guy needs to do, aside from the fact is look back and laugh at this situation, because this is actually pretty funny, and it could happen to a nicer girl, is number 1, stop hanging out with those so-called mutual friends, because they're a bunch of a-holes. They sound like just a lot like his ex-girlfriend. And number 2, time to move on. And if this Jen girl is now fired and doesn't have a job, it's not his problem. She her outburst and losing it and making an ass out of herself and calling her coworker and boss a WHORE and throwing in some racial slurs, that got her fired. Not your fault. But we have such a amount of people out there, they have no accountability at all. It's crazy. So good for him. He made mistakes. Hopefully he learned. And there you go. Now, there's more to be revealed in the comment section, so I'm going to go through some comments here before I wrap this up. One guy asks him, and he responds, "Why would you have any reason to think your current girlfriend worked with your ex? There's no planet where that's a sane, logical thought process. It's just really shitty luck, though, to be honest. The ex-girlfriend is clearly unstable and sounds like a freaking nightmare. Clearly you're not the a-hole and she needs real help." And the OP to the story says, "Yeah, that was my question to mutual friends. According to them, I was supposed to know because both Kate and Jen work in the same field. My point is that we live in a city with over 1 million people." Right. You know, where I used to live in Massachusetts, on one of the major highways there were all these tech companies. There were offices for Microsoft and Oracle and SAP, and every potential tech company you can think of had offices all along this main highway near Boston. You people in Massachusetts can probably figure out what I'm talking about here. I think it was 95. Anyhow, that'd be like having a girlfriend that, was a software engineer or something like that. Really, the odds are that she'd end up working at one of those places when there are countless company offices along there. Really? No. Another guy says, "You're not the a-hole. You didn't date her boss on purpose. It sounds like you didn't know. If that's true, then definitely not the a-hole. How were you supposed to know your ex was that bad with money? You're both adults, not children. As far as ghosting here, you broke up, and lots of people don't talk to their exes after they break up." Thank you. And I'm not at all surprised that his ex, Jen, crybaby Jen, is bad with money. Another one. This guy says, "It's amazing how many people out in the big bad world will blame anybody but themselves for their poor life choices. Not the a-hole. How are you supposed to even know she worked with your current girlfriend? Sounds like the ex never matured beyond her teenage years." And he responds, "Yeah, she's never been all that much into accountability." There you go. And there's more comments, but I think we get the point. So anyhow, guys, I think, frankly, couldn't happen to a nicer girl. This spoiled brat got what she deserved, and I think that's good. And guys, if you find yourself dating a girl and her true colors start coming out that she's unbelievably immature or behaves like this in some manner, for God's sakes, don't waste years of your life with her. Don't move in with her. It's not going to get better. End it with her and move on. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.